Right, hello, welcome to our Year 4 feedback meeting for Block 5. We always enjoy doing these meetings with you and letting you know what the children have been doing, highlight some misconceptions as well that the children have had maybe in the block in terms of their recent assessment, talk to you about what we're going to be doing next, and also a little bit about September as well. So I'll just continue just admit people into the call. Thank you very much for allowing me to record this. We will also send out a link to this particular meeting as well, so you can watch it back in your own time if that's what you would like to do. So I'm just going to share my slides with you now. So we've got a series of slides that we're going to be going through together and talk to you a little bit about blocks. So let's make sure you can all see these slides. Hopefully you can all see those clearly. So I've got Billy the bookworm here to help me along the way. I'm just going to continually just admit a few more people into the call. So welcome. Hopefully your child is in Year 4 if you're attending this meeting, and we're going to provide some feedback on the block of lessons the children have just had, and also talk to you about the next block, our final block of this academic year. I can't believe I'm saying that, to be honest. I don't know where the time goes. We're soon going to go into our final block of lessons for 24-25, and then of course we will come back in Year 5 in September. So just to outline the objectives of this particular meeting, it's to provide detailed feedback about Block 5, also look at the recent verbal reasoning assessment. And what I've done is I've chosen a few questions just to talk to you about. It's interesting, I think, obviously every child will probably do differently and get different questions wrong, but there were some commonalities with some of the questions that children got wrong. And I'm lucky enough to teach a group at the moment in Year 4. So I can talk to you a little bit about some of the questions that I think children can hopefully learn from, but build their understanding on further as they go forward. We've also got to outline the content for Block 6 with you, talk to you about what we're going to be doing next, give you some diary dates. And I can imagine your diaries are completely full at the moment, not only with things that Teachitright are doing, but also school events and things like that. But we do want to just clarify a few dates with you. I do have Annie Nesbitt in the call with me, which is great. Annie is our office manager, and I'm sure you may have spoken to Annie on the phone on occasions, but she's here to answer any questions. So if you've got anything you think, oh, I'd like a little bit of clarity on that, then please just write your message in the chat feed, and Annie will do her best to respond. If you would rather write a direct message to Annie, then you can also do that as well. Okay, so Annie Nesbitt is our Teachitright office manager. She's in the call, so she can answer any questions. And I will give you an opportunity at the end of the meeting to ask questions as well. So please do that if you want to. So just a little bit of a summary then of Block 5. So the pupils have been tackling different verbal reasoning question types. We tend to find with verbal reasoning, this is a topic children don't tend to do very much of at school. They do work on vocabulary and they do things like comprehension, but we were looking specifically at a lot of question types that involved things like code questions, things like using the alphabet, things like that. So this, again, I think would have been slightly unique for the pupils, that they were coming across things they may not have seen before at all. We do treat them very much like puzzles, and they are, hopefully, I think the children have really enjoyed working out lots of, as I say, code questions, even number questions that appear within verbal reasoning as well. We've continued with our weekly spellings. My group certainly have been really impressed with their spelling results, absolutely brilliant, and also mental arithmetic tests as well. So the mental arithmetic test, you may have noticed if you've been looking carefully at their sheets that they do every week, has actually gone up to 20 questions. So they're feeling very grown up now because they're getting a little bit older and certainly not far away from that Year 5 year. So we've upped the ante a little bit with having 20 questions every week to work through in terms of maths. One of the interesting things that I find with working through some of the verbal reasoning question types is the use of the alphabet. And I often say when I say to the children, oh, we're going to use the alphabet to work out some questions, the immediate thought is, oh, this is going to be really easy. I know my alphabet. I know it's got 26 letters. But when we start getting into it and we start to count along the alphabet, we start to think about things like mirrored letters, it does get a little bit more complex. And one of the things that we've encouraged the children to learn over this block is their mirrored pairs. Now, there may only be one or two questions that involve their mirrored pairs, but we certainly would like them to learn those mirrored letters. And the way that they can do it is actually link it to animals. And you'll see on the sheet that we've provided here, we've actually given these out to the children that they can remember it in quite a fun way. So, for example, angry zebras or hoppy squirrels. So imagine folding the alphabet in half between M and N, and every letter would have a pair. And it's about learning those mirrored pairs. So when they see them, they know they're mirrored and they'll hopefully be able to achieve the answer very quickly. So again, maybe even over the summer holidays, children can test themselves a little bit on those mirrored letters and try and learn them off by heart. You'll find within the books that we've used within this block, and certainly this is one, the three sets of books that we've used CGP, we've used Bond, we've also used a Schofield and Sims book. You will find code questions, certainly within the CGP and Schofield and Sims book to look at and see how the children do use their alphabet. One of the things we would say, certainly in regards to those tasks within those books, if there's anything outstanding, children can get those finished. We won't use those books ever again. Certainly when they get round to year 5, it will start to get a little bit harder, sort of 9 to 10. Eventually 10 to 11 books will arrive, but that's more sort of towards the end of the year 5 course. But certainly in regards to those books, then please try and get everything finished off. Maybe good opportunity, maybe over the summer holidays or even the half-term holidays coming up to try and get those things finished off. We're going to just talk now a little bit about the actual verbal reasoning assessment. I think probably the majority of the children now will have had that back. So every 5th week, we do a test and children sit under test conditions and they work through a paper. What's always interesting is the process of going through the paper with the children in week 6 of the block. And when we go through the paper, there are things that sometimes children commonly get wrong, but we can talk about how to achieve the right answer. Exam technique is crucial, and one of the things I've noticed, even with my group, that sometimes children do work a little bit too quickly. There's a sort of I want to get through as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and they can easily make mistakes that way. So, and I'm sure this is a bit of a maturity thing, but as children get older, hopefully they do take a bit more time. They are more considerate about the answers they're going for, but they're also more prepared to double check as well. And that is part of doing well in any exam, that once you've finished, are you prepared to go back to the harder questions, look over what you've done, make sure you've answered all the questions. As it was a multiple choice test, we would expect every child to put an answer for every question. And I know there were some children in my group that actually, no, they didn't put an answer for every question. Well, there's no point doing that because you have a chance of getting it right, even being multiple choice. So I thought we'd just spend a little bit of time having a look at some questions which did cause children maybe a little bit more of a challenge. This was question 18, mend, and we had to find the antonym to that. So most children knew that mend meant to fix, so the opposite, of course, is break. Now, you can see the options. You've got construct, break, and use. Now, I'm sure you can probably tell that the majority of the children may well have noticed that there was a homophone there, break and break. And some of the children selected this brake. Well, of course, that brake would be the brake in your car, rather than to break something, B-R-E-A-K. So just knowing your homophones is really important. So obviously with this one, we wanted the children to select this break to be the opposite of mend. Homophones are often tested within the 11 plus, and I would certainly suggest children creating lists, learning those, learning the spellings, things like principal and principal, blue and blue. There are hundreds of homophones, but you often find within the 11 plus, they will test that at some point, whether that's things like odd ones out or analogies, certainly with these kind of questions where you're looking at opposite in meaning. So please make sure your child is aware of homophones, but do learn those as well, and take every opportunity when you come across a homophone to explain to the children the different meanings. One of the other question types we had within the test, and this is very applicable certainly to our Reading Boys pupils, where they have to look for missing letters and insert them. It's also a good test for GL pupils as well, but certainly for our Reading Boys, this was very applicable. I think, first of all, children need to realise that there's one letter per box. And did notice sometimes children putting more than one letter per box. So that's just about reading the question, making sure there's 3 letters each time. But it's also a test of vocabulary. And 22 did cause a few problems. So we were looking here for opposite in meaning again. So it's hide, and obviously the word is discover. So the idea being then that the child would write in the gap the letters that they need to put in there. Now, sometimes if you don't know the word, it's whether you can use the letters that are around it to give you a bit of a clue. So have a look at your child's test. Did they get that one right? If they didn't, doesn't matter, but will they remember later down the line that hide and discover are opposites? We also had a few issues with this word, because some children didn't know what drab meant. So we talked about drab being very dull and dismal. So we need something which is the opposite. Now, certainly with FUL, that's a really big clue. So obviously the answer here is colourful. Now, when we looked at it as well, children sometimes spelt it incorrectly. Well, if they spelt it incorrectly, they wouldn't have got the mark. Now, because there was lots of space next to the question, because you don't see words written with huge spaces, it certainly might have been useful just to write the word out so they could then slot in the letters into the gap. So that was something we did talk to the children about, was using the space that they've got to write down the word to help them slot the letters in. So that was one question type which we did feel children need to work a bit more on. We also presented the children with synonym questions as well. And I guess synonyms is one of those sort of popular question types, not only within verbal reasoning, but it could also occur within a comprehension exercise as well. So we did get our word and meaning books out. Here, the word and meaning books, really important that children use these, and encouraging them to record down words that are unfamiliar. So the answer to this one was squander. So if I waste something, if I squander, say if I spent a lot of money, I might have squandered it. Squander was a word that children didn't know. So I think putting it in your word and meaning book, so it's there forever then, writing a quick definition, doesn't need to be very long, just so they remember it for a future. Lucky and fortunate. What is important here is that the word can interchange with the other word in a sentence. Sometimes with this question, some children chose happy. Well, if you are lucky, you probably are happy, but they don't necessarily mean exactly the same. Whereas being fortunate and being lucky, they do mean the same. So you can imagine how a number of the words are very close in meaning, but not as close as what they need to be. Just going back to 35 as well, only because it stands out, you'll also see the word hoard there. Well, of course, waste and hoard would be antonyms. So again, sometimes children selecting an antonym rather than a synonym. So often with a lot of these questions, it's about reading what to do. I will mention this, and I'm sure this child was not the only one, but in the first section, there was a series of odd to out. And I was really interested because when I looked in a lot of the books, a lot of the questions were odd one out. Now, within that first section, there was 10 questions altogether. The children had to find the 2 words that were the odd ones out. And there were a few pupils, and certainly a child I know, that actually went for the odd one out. So unfortunately, they lost 10 marks there, probably because they didn't read the question or didn't quite think, oh, that's exactly what I've got to do. Maybe assumed because they've been doing odd one out within their books, that was going to be odd one out. So again, it's all about reading the questions carefully. Just wanted to make a point on these ones. Now, some of you may be surprised to see that this is a maths question, but within verbal reasoning. And that does happen sometimes, that there are about 4 different types of maths questions that can appear within verbal reasoning. And the reason they're in there is because of the logical thinking. And again, I think it is important to realise that math skills, basic mental math skills, is also a type of reasoning. So making sure children know their times tables, they know their division facts, their basic addition, their subtraction is a key element to doing well, not only in the 11 plus, but also within your child's classroom as well. So just a thought I'd pick these 2 out. 54. Now, some of the children did get this one incorrect because they weren't quite sure what the pattern was. And those are actually, it's a sequence of squared numbers. So if you count down, you're going 11 times 11, 10 tens, 9 nines, 8 eights, 7 sevens. Well, of course, this is 6 sixes. Now, you can actually get to the answer by finding the difference between the numbers. But if you very quickly recognize them as squared numbers, you're going to get the answer a lot quicker. 55, some children did find this one hard, and I thought it's not an easy one, this one. This is actually what you would describe as adding the 2 previous numbers. It's not a Fibonacci sequence, similar setup, but slightly different. So 2 and 5, that will equal 7. 5 and 7 will equal 12. And as we go on, 7 and 12 makes 19. 12 and 19 makes 31. And to get our answer, we're going to add 19 and 31 together. Now, what we tend to find with questions like that is you won't necessarily know what's going on unless you think that that is a possible type of sequence. It's the same with prime numbers, cube numbers. It's identifying those as numbers. Okay, so we'll just put in there what the answer was. Of course, it would have been 50. I've only taken a little snippet there of some of the questions. We do provide the test, and of course the tutors will go through the test in week 6. So I'm sure the children found that really useful, and hopefully it gave them an understanding of where they got their marks, but also potentially where they lost marks and how to avoid those mistakes in the future. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. I can't believe we're going into our final block of lessons. So we do have a sort of, I suppose, 2 courses running in parallel a little bit. We have Reading Boys, who are focusing very much on things like grammar, punctuation, and spelling, writing, creative writing, but also comprehension. There has been a change to the Reading Boys syllabus, and that is going to include critical thinking. At the moment, we are working incredibly hard to produce a critical thinking scheme of work, and that critical thinking will certainly be used very much in year 5 when children get into year 5. I would say though, certainly the skills the children are doing in block 6 still have some relevance to the new test, but there is going to be a slightly different format in September. So we are looking forward to doing that. We're looking forward to developing the critical thinking curriculum for Reading Boys. It's not been an easy task, I must admit. They've been sort of less transparent as they usually are about what the exam will entail, but we are certainly using all of our expertise to generate a really good course for the Reading Boys pupils to get them as prepared for that exam as possible. With regard to GL assessment, we're actually reverting back to non-verbal reasoning and looking forward to doing that with the children. There will also be a maths element involved. We'll still be doing our mental arithmetic tests. I think we've also got some maths tasks towards the end of the block as well. So it is primarily around non-verbal. doing both sort of 2D and three-dimensional questions. And again, we're very much looking forward to helping children with those. Children will be issued with all these books soon, and I'll go through the dates in a moment in terms of when they'll be distributed out. Spellings will continue. So children, of course, will get their new spelling list soon, and they'll be learning the spellings each week. And I've been certainly really impressed with my group with their spelling knowledge. But as you can see, the words do get a little bit more tricky. Think about words like questionnaire and accommodation. Not easy. So do give them attention. Do give them time. I always say to my lot, learn 2 a day. And by the time you get round to the test, you'll be ready to go. We will also be doing our mental arithmetic tests, so please ensure your child has their sheets. It can be quite difficult when a child doesn't have their sheets that they need, or they've left them at home. Actually doing the test is quite problematic because a lot of the information they need is kind of written down the side. So please ensure your child brings those along to every lesson. It's really important. Keep them in their bags, I suggest. You can obviously have a look at them, but do make sure they're back in their bags ready for the lessons as well. That would be really, really great. So really looking forward to going into block 6. I'd also like to just talk briefly about year 5. A number of our year 5 classes are now full. We've had a real surge of interest, certainly over the last few months, for the year 5 start. If you do wish to join still in September, please do make contact with our head office. Please be aware, though, you may not necessarily get your first choice now, just because some of those classes are now full. But we do have a number of locations. So we're happy to put you down on a waiting list for your first choice, but do have a look on our website because we're also opening a number of new sites in September as well. So do be conscious of that. And we do hope, obviously, it's convenient for you. With the majority of the children from year 4 going up into year 5, they will hopefully have the same tutor. That's not always possible, but certainly where we can, we've kept it as consistent as we can because those tutors have built a relationship with those children. They know them well. And I think that's always nice that they take them up into year 5. But if you have concerns about that or you want to ask about that, then please do let our office know. In the summer, we send out dates for the terms ahead. We'll also send out information about the course. There is also a book that we provide, which is to really use over the holidays. It's a lovely book to use. It's full of puzzles and activities, and that will be sent out before the end of the summer term. So be aware of that. Certainly before you break up in July, you will receive that pack and we will get that out to you ASAP. That, of course, is only if you have joined and you've signed up, paid your deposit, ready for the year 5 course. Thought a good idea just to give you some diary dates, and apologies if I'm swarming your diary with things, but it is important that we know sort of what's happening. This coming weekend, which is obviously a bank holiday, we won't be running our lessons, our normal weekly lessons. We've actually got mock exams for our year 5s running then, so no normal lessons this coming weekend, but a half term will begin from the 23rd to the 30th of May. But we are resuming lessons on the second weekend of half term, if you like, the 31st of May. I did think, and I've been asked this question a few times, I'm sure the office gets asked this question, when is our final lesson in the summer term? Well, that actually will be the 20th of July, which is a Sunday. We do run classes on a Sunday in Gerrards Cross. So obviously the Saturday previous will be the last Saturday of the summer term. And that's really when we break up. We do, over the summer, though, run a skills camp for our year 4s between the 18th and 20th of August. This is really good opportunity just to come back together, do lots of fun games and quizzes and activities, and we run that in Maidenhead for our year 4 pupils. Be lovely if you can attend that. I know the children get a huge amount out of it. Obviously, our focus is very much on our year 5 pupils because they take their exams beginning of September, but we didn't want to leave out our year 4s. But of course, back in September, in year 5, if I can say that to all of our pupils that are here, can't believe you'll be in year 5 in September, all grown up, and we'll be back on the 6th of that month. So back on the 6th of September. I hope that's given you a little bit of clarity on kind of what we've been doing, what we've been up to. I've been super impressed with the pupils that I've come across in year four. They are brilliant. They're working incredibly hard and been really diligent, certainly with the verbal reasoning. Of course, verbal reasoning is something we will come back to in year five, but it's really nice to set the foundations for them, and it will make it so much easier once they come around to those topics again, once they get into their new academic year. I can see there's been lots of questions and things in the chat, so I'm going to do my best to have a little look. I know Annie's been asking lots of things as well, which is or answering lots of things, which is great. We will send out the recording, so we'll send that out to you, so don't worry, that will come out. Please can I check when we will be getting the results? Now, you should have received your results already. If you've had your week 6 lesson, you should have received them. So if you haven't had your week 6 yet, you probably haven't had them yet, but a lot of the children will have had theirs back. You can also go onto the portal, and I know our tutors are being really diligent at getting those reports up as soon as they can in regards to letting you know how the children have got on. In regards to the skills camp and the fees, if you go onto our Teachitright website, you'll be able to see all of that there, so you can register for that if you're interested. Annie's also put a link within the chat as well, so you've got a link to that camp if you need it. Can I again thank you very much for coming along? Really appreciate it. Is there anyone who wants to ask anything in terms of not covered within the feedback or not covered within the chat? I don't think there is there?
Chris?
Feel free to, yeah, hi.
Hi there. It's Mum here. Appreciate you mentioned in your presentation that you'd recommend completing the verbal reasoning books and maybe in the half term or summer holidays. I just wanted to gauge kind of what other preparation you think the children should do ahead of the year 5 classes. Kind of what's the step change that we should expect? Is it going to be quite a big jump, or
Yeah,
would it
it's a
be
really good
natural?
question. Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question. I hope it's quite a fluent change into year 5 in the sense that very much so we sort of go to a 9 to 10 series of books with the pupils. So I think there is that progression, but I'd also say there is a step up. And particularly when you look at vocabulary, there's a big leap with the kind of words that they're exposed to, kind of words they're expected to know. And I'd also say that with things like maths, that some of the topics we cover are not always taught within a year 5 curriculum. Often they're not really, if you think of things like ratio and algebra and things like that. I do feel with the year 4 course, I think it really does set the foundations in a very strong way, and children are becoming very familiar with what to do. They recognise a lot of the strategies they need to apply. But I think finishing off pretty much all the materials that you do have at your disposal from the blocks, and hopefully that's quite a sizable amount of books. I mean, if I think about the free books that we're looking at there on the screen, there will still be quite a lot within there that we've not managed to get through, not only from a homework perspective, but also a class perspective as well. So I think utilising all of that as best you can. I think it is also important to mention, though, children having a bit of a respite over the summer, that they have worked incredibly hard. And I think a case of sort of recharging their batteries before they come back in year 5. The year 5 course is more intense. There's a longer period of time. The lessons last longer. They're 2 hours rather than an hour and a half. So we get through a lot more content. But I'd also emphasize, I suppose, on the flip side of that coin, to do lots of reading over the holidays. Keeping your brain active with puzzles and activities is always a good idea. You know, things like Sudoku and, think of lots of, maths games that you can also play with children that, just keep children alert and ticking over. But I also think having some respite as well is key, because it's a long, it's a long year, it's a long academic year. The summer term is also very long. You always find sort of by the time we get around to July, children are flagging, tutors are flagging a bit as well, to be honest. But I do think that element of having a rest and having a break from it is also important. So maybe even timetabling it a little bit over the holidays, just sort of saying, we're going to do a little bit here, a little bit there, just so the kids are clear about what the routine is. We try and make that transition as smooth as we can. But yeah, you won't be surprised, I'm sure, when you do look at the materials that, there is a step up in year 5.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Okay, I'm just going to check the chat again just to make sure I have not missed anything. Why can't a year 4 join a year 5 mock? And that's a good question. I've had that before. I think you have to understand that the year 5 mocks obviously are aimed at the ability level that children will be doing in September. And I think to put a year 4 child through it would be too much. And I think they're not ready for that sort of time management. They're also not ready for that level of difficulty either. We do plenty of mock exams, of course, and we actually have brought one into February for our year 5s as well, which gives them really good exam experience very early on or earlier on in the academic year. And then we, of course, do them in Easter, we do them in the summer, but don't be too quick to sort of test children in a sort of an exam hall environment. We do our block tests. They are very much invigilated as an exam, but it sometimes can happen too early where you sort of put a child in a hall and they're just not quite ready for that experience. So that's the reason. That's not to say, though, that we don't sort of regularly assess them, throughout the course, and of course we do. But yeah, that's certainly always been my stance, is to wait until year 5 before they do any sort of more formal mock tests. Okay, excellent. Right. Again, Annie has been great at responding to quite a few of the questions in the chat, and I hope you feel those have been answered. Thank you very much for attending. I better go to my next meeting, but really appreciate your attendance this evening. It's been great. And yeah, look forward to seeing a lot of you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks very much for attending. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.